recording. She works for War Resisters League,
Uh-huh.
and she does workshops and lectures and demonstrations and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff related to that. She also is very involved with um, a piece of property somewhere outside of Norwich. I've been there once actually, but she's on the board of directors for that. She does a lot of workshops, particularly with women, on peaceful demonstration.
Yeah. I sort of gathered that, but
Yeah, um, she's a very interesting person. Does some
yeah.
very interesting and wonderful work.
Yeah.
We're I think we're lucky to have her.
Yeah.
Oh,
Morning, Adam.
you're
Hey,
you're in
Corey.
the office, Adam.
I'm in the office. Yeah. There's been a bout of GI stuff flying around the hospital. There's
Ah,
been tons of call outs, people coming to work and then getting really sick to their stomach and needing to go home and stuff. So, long story short, anyways, I woke up this morning and Rose actually caught it. So
oh,
I'm here trying to cover. Um, I'm gonna participate the best I can. There's a couple things going on. I might have to like pop off to
yep.
deal with, but I'll hang out as long as I can.
Completely understand. Um, Joanne is not going to be here. She's overwhelmed with work this morning. Um, so it must be that kind of day.
I guess so. We'll try not to overwhelm you with work today, David.
I'm fine. I try to pace myself very carefully,
Yeah.
but uh, everyone doesn't have that freedom.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So we do the best we can. There's Mr. Bynum.
Hello.
Hello.
Morning.
How are you feeling, Adam?
Good. Good. I'm doing better. Yeah. Actually, my friend wrote me a script for antibiotics, and that made the world of difference. So,
Ah,
yeah, I talked to Jess, and after 2.5 weeks of really no improvement, she said, at this point, it's probably time to suspect something other than just a random virus.
yeah.
So yeah, I did 7 days of doxy, and that seemed to take care of it.
No kidding. Good.
Yeah.
Well, glad that something took care of it.
Yeah, me too. It was getting pretty obnoxious,
Yeah, that's gone on too long.
Yeah.
So, we didn't get too much snow.
Hardly a thing. Cold rain.
Well, we had the ground covered up here. It's very pretty, but
Oh,
no depth.
oh yeah, we had nothing over by me.
Yeah, and Bill's probably warm.
Yeah, we've been pretty warm. We had a weird inch of snowy slush the other day that stuck on the branches and was beautiful, and it was perfect because it covered the ground and covered the branches and melted on all the roadways, including our gravel driveway. So,
Good. Okay. Well, let us proceed. Good. Well, where are you?
I'm over here in Chester.
Yeah, right. In God's, where are you? Problems, issues, breakthroughs.
I guess a few questions after watching the recording last week about the C-spine. We talked a lot about the muscles in the back
Mhm.
and really relaxing into that curve. And we previously talked about, not the hips and butt not going back,
Mhm.
but really tucking under.
Yeah.
What's going on, I guess, in the front of the body and the hips and the leg muscles? Because I'm finding as I relax the muscles in the back and the hips drop and tuck under, it almost feels like the front of the quads really want to engage. And I assume obviously we're trying to stay relaxed. But that's been a challenging part as things slowly relax in the back, which is difficult in itself because I tend to have really tense what's the name of those muscles? The spinal erector muscles there going up
Yep.
the sides. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the front of the body there as you do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yes, you want the quad to relax, and we talked a little bit about not trying to not engage the abdominal muscles,
Mhm.
which is really an indication that you are trying too hard,
Mhm.
that you're endeavoring to force that movement. And as with as with everything almost that we do, we're trying to find how do we allow this to happen.
Mhm.
And so it's easy for me to say this, but our mind says, well, if I'm going to make my spine curve and straighten, I've got to really involve all the muscles involved here and make it happen.
Mhm.
And that's just that's counterproductive
Mhm.
energetically, and so it is really a matter of exploration on your part to find what is the appropriate amount. And so maybe your C curve isn't very noticeable or very big.
Mhm.
You don't have to make it big
Mhm.
because that just doesn't necessarily function very well.
Mhm.
As long as you feel some extension of the vertebra at the top and the bottom of the spine, that's probably enough.
Mhm. Okay.
At least to begin with.
Mhm.
And so I think that part of it is learning to allow yourself to not overdo, not try too hard.
Mhm.
And to recognize that it is a releasing and allowing that movement to happen than a forcing of that movement.
Mhm.
David, is this somehow related to Sung?
Oh, somehow, yes.
I mean, as you're talking about it, not that
It is obviously integrally related to Sung.
um, the relaxing and the maintaining the form at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's finding that balance. As a matter of fact, that it's kind of interesting that in Taoism, that word is one of the very important ones. Balance. We're not looking for extremes. We're looking for how to balance everything. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, yeah, balance and just doing it gradually through the movement instead of arriving before the transition point. Yeah,
Absolutely.
is a continual focus and challenge. I
That,
have one.
let
Go,
me
yeah.
just say, Bill, that rings a bell with me because that was my issue at first with the C curve, with bend the bow. That I I got to the C curve and then I had to do the rest of the movement.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's very important to remember that it's all gradual.
yeah,
It's not boom, boom, but it has to be a continuous flow, just like everything else.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I especially have that issue with the twisting in and out.
Mm.
With one separate thing, I find myself as I'm going into the C curve, separating the scapula and relaxing everything back there. Is that, would you talk about that a little bit? What else is happening as you go into the, not everything else, but maybe a couple of other else's.
I'm I'm laughing because there are probably 15 other else's. um, well, I don't think that relaxing the scapula will describe what's going on, because when we are bending, everything is bending. So if you are bending the spine, then the arms are bending and the scapula are coming in towards the spine and in towards the ribs. And when you're straightening, they're going out. So the scapula are constantly moving with the spine, not just going along for the ride.
Okay, now I feel like my scapula are probably doing the opposite of what you just described. I'm going into the C curve, they seem to be moving out.
Well, um, so usually, and yes, absolutely, literally everything that we do can be done in reverse or in the opposite relationships. But initially, usually, when we are bending the posterior part of the spine going into the C curve, that's also combined with bending elsewhere in the body. So we're not usually going into the C curve as we straighten the legs and the arms.
Yeah,
So,
what you're saying does make sense.
yeah. So initially, you want to work with them all working that way because it's a little bit easier and for most people more natural. Although, if it doesn't, this is one of those places where I have to say, um, working with things in their opposite relationship to what we're basically teaching as beginners, um, sometimes that just doesn't work for you. Uh, for instance, that shows up more often, I think, for us in the beginning with breathing,
Hmm.
in that um, yes, we pretty much inhale when we're bending and exhale when we're extending or straightening. However, I've had students who, in GODS, found that in doing a specific movement, they absolutely couldn't do that, but it worked very well in the opposite relationship. So I'm not going to absolutely say you should not do that, go to the opposite, but generally speaking, the way that I am instructing you to start is the easier way to begin.
You know, as you say that, I think I have been doing the C curve without doing the, you know, going through the different postures
Mm-hmm.
because it feels so good to my low spine. And when I do it that way, that's when I separate the scapula. But when I have, you know, the movement like in one, with any of the postures, it is natural to when you're as you're forming the C curve for the scapula to go apart as we're extending, and you know,
Yeah.
so I appreciate your answer, and I think I asked a ragged question.
No, there's no, there never is a bad question. Or ragged. I like that term. Ragged question. How about you, Mr. Nagel? Do you have a question?
Darned if I can identify tangibly the muscles on either side of the spine. Is there a way to move the body almost as an exercise that would put me in touch with that?
You know,
I mean, I'm concentrating on it, or trying to,
Yeah.
and maybe something is happening, but I certainly can't verify it.
you know, there is an exercise, so it actually usually comes up a little bit later, but I think is a way to approach that among other things, and that is to get on all fours, on knees and hands on the floor or bed or whatever, and do your C curve in that position. And what that helps you do, it's in that position, there is less, I guess, less pressure on the spine because you're not standing on your feet.
Yeah.
And it really makes it a little easier to feel the C curve and to feel the muscles in the back, feel
Okay.
everything.
Okay, I will try that.
Yeah. So that might be a way to help you begin to have some awareness of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, that you're doing it that way is also another great approach to stress in the spine
Yeah.
in general. That's chiropractor recommended and stuff.
Yeah. Also, one of the things, I don't know whether this has come up before or not, but if you have low back issues, making sure that the movement of the qua is full and relaxed and really the leading element of the movement actually helps to treat that lower back issues. So sometimes if you're thinking of it in a therapeutic way, while we put a lot of emphasis on focusing on the spine, it's better to focus on the qua. for that purpose.
Yep.
Hmm.
So, anything else before we proceed on? So, we're going to begin looking at bending and stretching the spine with the legs and the lower torso. Previously, we've focused on the spine and the arms, but now we're going to focus on the spine and the legs. And we'll work on bending and stretching the spine with the whole body, spine, arms, and legs, eventually into the movements, of course. And we're going to tie this particularly all together in movement 6. Now, a few points here before we launch into it. You're going to bend this and stretch the spine in coordination with bending and stretching the legs. And when you first start doing the gross movement of bending and straightening your legs, it is fine to just be focusing on the physical movement. But afterwards, when we begin to connect all the things that are in your legs to the spine, we also need to include all we have done about moving the fascia. And later on in Gods, it's going to be about moving blood through the blood vessels, causing the movement of interstitial fluid down your legs to be stronger, and working the ligaments. And all of this, of course, is about your legs. Now, the question will become, if right now you're getting your legs to directly connect to your spine, is that enough? As you move further into Gods, you then start looking at connecting everything that is inside your legs to your spine. And later, when you want to do it, you have to realize that the primary left and right channels of your body, besides going between the qua and the shoulder's nest, also go through the bone matrix of your legs and your arms. And that means the bones. Now, bone matrix is a funny name, but it is not the same thing as your bone marrow, because the chi of your central channel, as it moves through your arms and your legs, moves through the bone marrow. So they really are two different things. And it will take a bit of practice on a sensory level to be able to recognize and manipulate one and not the other, or do both at the same time. So we're going to come back to the same problem that we had previously. The object is for the connection of your legs to your spine to be smooth and seamless. But the reason why you're usually not going to have them be smooth and seamless is because one or several vertebrae in your spine are not working that well. Or you could find that your knees or your ankles or either one of them may be the source of the inability to be smooth and seamless while you're bending and stretching your legs. But usually it's going to be something in your spine. So you just have to slow down and apply all the instructions from the last few lessons here. Now, some parts of your spine may be uneven, and they'll have more problems than others, just like some parts of your spine will be smooth. It's not unusual if you have problems in your spine, perhaps feeling surges, like a surge in the ocean where the waves will come up and get bigger all of a sudden. And this is usually just that the chi is trying to get through where you have a problem or a blockage in the vertebra of your spine. In the case of people who have rather severe problems, let's say MS or Parkinson's, then a lot of it is going to be about getting the much more subtle signals in your legs to become even stronger and smoother. And that is not part of this particular training, but sometime in the future. Bruce says he will instruct us in that and will relate God's playing in the clouds to things like MS and Parkinson's. But remember that the central issue in both of those is that the way things are going to get made better is by taking rough and intermittent signals inside the body and having them turn into smooth, continuous flowing ones. Now, one simple distinction. Are your legs moving your spine, or is your spine moving your legs? So if we go back to the metaphor of the pool cue, you have the tip and you have the back of the cue. Which one's your spine and which one's your legs? Because they could flip. In the game of pool, the thing that usually determines the best pool player, or a prerequisite for being a top-class pool player, is not just that you know where to hit the ball. It's what's called stroke. And stroke is just how smoothly the cue moves, which means that you can manipulate the force with which the cue hitting the cue ball, which is hitting another ball. And so stroke is a big deal. Stroke simply means that the stroke that you're doing is extremely smooth and integrated. So we're going to start looking at the legs and the spine. Now, when you normally move, your spine tells your legs what to do, or your brain through your spine tells your legs what to do, and they do it. But now you want to start having your legs move your spine. And it can't be so automatic. It has to be very deliberate. When you are bending your legs up and down, you have to take some time to recognize, are they connecting to your spine? You can move your legs up and down and not connect to your spine, or you can connect. So how do you become aware of it? Like a force going through your legs and feeling it moving up your spine and to the crown of your head. And knowing that it's very, very subtle, and it will take time before you're really aware that I am moving my legs, and it's going to go up through my perineum to my central channel and up to the top of my head. You have to spend some time to get your legs to connect to your spine or to connect to your central channel. It's fairly automatic that if you bend your spine, it can bend your legs. If you straighten your spine, it can straighten your legs, because that is basically how the human body is naturally wired. But it is not so naturally wired to have the legs go directly through the spine. So your first step is just going to be to bend your legs and somehow feel your spine and everything connecting into the middle. And it's going to be that it is your legs moving that are causing the movement in your spine, which means that your legs bending and stretching have to directly connect to the action of your spine. And you have to take the time to begin to feel it. Don't expect for the first few days that you do this that it's going to be 100%. It's going to grow over time. But when you get it, you'll get it, and it's not a big deal after that. So I'd like you to just stand up, and no arms at the moment. So just stand and take a moment to settle and breathe. And then begin to bend and extend your legs and feel them causing your spine to bend and extend. It can be a very small movement, doesn't have to be big, but it needs to be connected and coordinated. So when you bend your legs, the spine bends, and when you straighten, the spine straightens. And just see if you can just connect to the base of your spine. And then focus on your toes and begin to open and close your toes until that begins to connect to the very lowest part of your spine, the base of your spine. And it gets to start moving in coordination with your toes. This process alone starts waking up your spine. And now in any way that you can, begin to get the feeling of your entire legs connecting to your spine. And at this stage, when you first do God's playing in the clouds, before you can really get the central channel, you have to get the spine doing this, because the spine relates to the physicality of the human body, and the central channel relates to all the rest of it, of you. The Qigong part of God's playing in the clouds is about the spine, but the Shengong part of God's playing in the clouds is about the central channel, and they're not the same thing. Your central channel is in the middle of your body, and your spine is in back of it. And now as you're bending your legs, let your knees somehow be right in the middle part of your spine. Connect them. Connect your knees and the middle of your spine. So your feet are going to connect to the base of your pelvis, your knees to the middle, and your pelvis is going to connect to your head. And now really focus on the crown of your head as the exit point of the bending and stretching of your legs. And remember that you're going to keep your quads closed a little bit. Remember, the crown of your head is going up, not back. When you shoot the arrow from a bow, the tip does not go backwards, it goes forward. Your legs are causing your spine to move. When your legs bend, you bring all the energy from the top and bottom of your body into your lower dantian. And when your legs straighten, you shoot the energy from your lower dantian to your feet and the crown of your head. So when your legs are bending, they're pulling the energy into your lower dantian. And when they're straightening, they're causing the chi to move from your lower dantian to your periphery. Keeping the head going straight up and not moving backwards. Your feet are going to make the chi go to the crown of your head. And your feet closing and your legs bending are going to pull the chi from the crown of your head right down to your feet. Now put your arms out in front of you. And let the bending of your legs cause your spine to bend. And as we did before, the bending of your spine is going to cause your arms to bend. But the strength of your spine movement is going to come from your legs. And the strength of your arm movements is going to come from your spine. Which is going to be piggybacking off the strength of your legs. When you first begin, this is probably going to feel again like a game of pool where one ball hits another and that hits another and hits a ball into the pocket. But as you get better and better with this, you're not going to be able to separate your legs from your spine, from your head, or from your hands. It's all going to be moving as though there is one thing that's inside of you that is moving. Right now, we're just doing this in stages like we did before. So we're going to change where the hands are. Lift them so that your hands are up to the level of your eyes. And the legs and the spine will be doing the same thing, but as it translates to the hands, it probably will feel different. If your spine has weaknesses at any of the levels that your hands are going to be on, it's going to show you that it's a place where you need to get the motion of the opening and closing of your spine to become smoother and better. And in that way, you can upgrade your spine. Now bring your hands down to the level of your chin. And remember, it's your legs that are now moving your hands through your spine. You're not moving your hands at all. Your hands are being moved. You're not moving them. Now drop your hands down to the level of your solar plexus. Obviously, you can do this in as many increments as you want. So if you have a particular vertebra that was a problem, then for sure that's going to be one of the heights that you're absolutely going to want to practice this. This is a way of tuning up your spine every day. If your spine is strong and you have an accident, you can recover from it in a day or two. But a person who has a very weak vertebra may not recover for months if that vertebra goes out. Now drop your hands to the height of your belly button. But remember that the legs are moving the spine, which is moving the hands. You need to do this practice until you finally get the sense that your legs bending and stretching are causing your arms to bend and stretch. You know, there's an old phrase in martial arts which may or may not be of some use to you, but maybe. It says, you don't punch someone with your hands, you kick them with your fist. So the power is not coming from the upper body, it's coming through the legs and landing in your fist. You can see that if you try and walk a mile on your legs, you probably can do it. But if you try and walk a mile on your hands, you're probably not going to be able to. And now drop your hands to the level of your pubic hair. And now try moving your hands out to your sides with your fingers pointing toward the floor. And remember, you're moving your arms by bending and straightening your legs. Besides, they are bending your spine. You should feel every joint in your body bending, closing, and when you're stretching and straightening, opening. And remember, when you bend, the energy's coming from the bottom of your body and the top to your lower dantian. And as you straighten, have it go from your lower dantian to the top and bottom of your body and to your fingertips. So all we're looking for is integrated coordination of chi movement. And that really is the name of the game. So pause and relax. So what could you feel in terms of the legs driving the movement?
I feel like, oh, let's all jump in. Go for it, Bill.
Okay. Pretty much aware of the connection through the pelvis up through the lumbar area. Not as much from there on up. And honestly, when you said connect the knees to the middle of the spine, I got lost there. And in trying to do that, it disturbed what I had going with the pelvic lumbar connection. So I went back to it. Yeah.
That was the right thing to do.
Yep.
What about feeling the movement of the spine causing the arms to move?
That was a little bit inconsistent, but yes, especially in the middle and lower positions of the arms, not so much up at the eyes or the chin.
That really coordinates with your feeling more fully the connection from your legs to the lower spine, I think.
Yes, yes.
So you need to practice this in order to ideally move it all right on up.
Yeah.
Because ultimately feeling the energy moving fully to the what are called the 5 points, the crown of the head, the fingertips, and the toes, and back into the dantian is a critical step eventually.
Yes.
Important step. Yeah. And you have to feel all 5 at the same time.
Yeah.
Adam, Bill?
Um, I feel like the energy of the legs driving the movement of the spine is probably the wrong word for me. I feel like I can coordinate the movement of the legs in the spine. But it feels like have 2 balls moving independently at the same time
Mm-hmm.
in the same way, rather than like one causing the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
I find as soon as you add the arms, mentally, the arms want to take over.
Yep.
It's a constant bringing it back to the legs. Yeah,
And that's really, as you know, an important step.
yeah,
We have to make the arms less important.
yeah.
They stick out in front of us and we see them all the time.
Hmm. Yeah, the most success by really just like if the arms move, the arms move,
Yeah.
and not really paying too much attention to how much or if they're really moving at all.
Mhm.
Found with the legs too, really focusing on making sure that the ankle joint is moving and is moving smoothly, helps keep the mind in the legs. I think I find it easy if you're focusing on the quad and the hips and the knees to get distracted by what you're doing with the spine and really losing any type of connection or focus on the legs.
Interesting. Well, and whatever works.
Yeah,
But you do want to, we need to go through this stage of getting the legs to move the spine.
yeah,
Um, and indeed, as I said, eventually, of course, it all is moving together. Indeed, but we have to make sure we don't just try to jump to that without going through the stage of really being clear about feeling the legs moving the spine.
hmm
Yeah. Bill?
Um, I was I was feeling like I wanted to redesign my skeleton from the waist down and put in a lot more joints so
Uh-huh.
my legs would work more like my spine. Because if I go just a little bit too low and fold the quad a little too much, it's almost when you extend the spine to fold the leg to bend down a little bit, doing that spine technique takes away the quad fold. And if you go into almost all of it, for me, and then you sink a little bit too low, and then all of a sudden the quad fold felt like a block rather than uh,
Hmm.
and then the same with the knee. If I folded the knee a little bit too much and the ankle a little bit too much, so I wanted a few extra joints so I could fold them all a little less and sort of make my legs like a lower spine or something. But that would make a giant S from my foot to the top.
Okay. I'll see if
But
I can work that out for you, Bill.
yeah, I say that because it just having 3 joints at the hip with a quad at the knee and at the ankle, fold them a little bit too much, I was feeling like a blockage. And if I did it less extreme and in effect sort of wanted to have that sort of curve develop as your knees go out a little bit and your ankle folds in at an angle and your quad folds slightly, to make that gentle resembling what you can do with your spine, seemed to be something a spot I was wanting to get to not have a block.
So Yeah, clearly, some practice is required to find what's the appropriate relationship between the two areas, and discovering um, a how do you smoothly fold and straighten the legs. So what's the right level for you to begin with? I mean, as you practice something like this or all of God's, eventually you could sink lower, but the movement doesn't require that it be huge. Um, but of course, the more subtle it is, then it can be sometimes more difficult to find those relationships at first. But you also obviously don't want a blockage in the joints of the leg when you're trying to relate that to the spine. So finding what movement will work and coordinating that may be a little bit of a job at the
Phil, I know
moment.
you can't answer me, bye.
No easy answers.
I did think it's a great, it's like a pump. And I was feeling it from the feet to the top of the head. I think it's a great thing to work on, and every now and then it was much better than other things.
Yeah.
Than other moments. So
This is also something, that because it can be done subtly and you don't have to have the arms sticking out, you could do it almost anywhere. If you're still at that stage of feeling self-conscious of practicing in front of people. It's funny how we go through that. Somebody reminded me, I got over that many years ago when I had a summer in which I did a lot of practice on the beach. And people walking by would give me the weirdest looks. And I got over it to a point where it really didn't matter. I didn't care what they. So it helps if you don't care too much about what somebody else thinks about your practice.
that helps everything.
It sure does.
So, guys, have some fun with this. And this is the beginning of a new session, by the way.
Okay.
I forgot to put that out in the email, but I'll mention it now.
Okay, good. Very good.
Sounds
Great.
good.
Have a good week.
You too. Thanks,
See you
David.
all next week.
Yep. See you next week.
I'm getting you your Venmo right now.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I will forget. I've got way too much in my head with work.
Okay.
Let me take care of it. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Great.
That should be sent over.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Came already.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think any real form questions. I have been trying to work on doing the form a little bit more, not losing as much sight of it, and work in the third paragraph too to not lose that. What we've been doing has been certainly helping, especially with the C-spine. I seem to lose the C-spine in the form but it does help make a stronger connection from the legs to the spine and arms.
Uh-huh.
And then usually I kind of get to the end of the flow and realize, like, I don't think I did the C-spine once there. But that's kind of what I've been doing is more flow with the form than like practicing any specific posture or
Yeah.
technique.
And that thing I brought up last week about the spherical nature of the movement of cloud hands.
Mm,
But thinking about that all the way through the form
hmm
really, for me, is an interesting stage anyway. Um, it helped in all of the rounding of the corners and everything else. So keeping the movement going,
mm,
but really, really trying to find the roundness of things rather than the end result.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. Especially with Repulse Monkey and
Mm,
Lady Does Something with a Shuttle.
yeah.
Those ones I find I have a hard time having that roundness at the end of the posture.
Mm-hmm.
Feels very much almost like kind of like a jabbing attack. It really loses any roundness. It feels very linear towards the end.
Yeah.
So it'd be a good spot to really try and work that out.
Yeah, and it's pretty subtle in those. I know what you're saying there
Mhm,
about those movements because they are very clearly strikes
mhm,
when we look at the martial aspect. Um, but we want to try to maintain that sense of roundness through all the movement.
Yeah.
Well, clearly this is not a time or place to
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. No, it's a little difficult. Little difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna have to rewatch the recording for the pieces I had to miss there on the phone.
Well,
Um,
that's all right. It
but
wasn't very much. Uh,
that's okay. Guaranteed practice time. So
yeah, yeah.
um, so
Okay. Well, good. Hang in there, and I hope your day is not too stressful.
thank you. It'll be okay.
Oh,
Just a lot of little things to take care of here. So
all righty.
thanks, David. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Good. Take care.